The book lists a lot of purposes for a law enforcement officer's report, and every one of those purposes is a true and valid one. But I'll tell you, as a career police officer, the biggest reason for a good report is it protects me as a police officer. I'm going to be detailed in that report, so if anybody comes back and tries to say that I did something wrong or that I did not respond correctly, I'm going to already have in my report exactly what happened. I don't want to have to go back in my report and put that I did an arm shoulder lock on someone to take them down to the ground. However, during the arm shoulder lock technique, they moved their arm, causing me to perform the technique ineffectively. Uh, if I say that in my report and then I'm sued 2 years down the road for doing this technique improperly, I clearly identified why I did it different because they moved their arm and this happened. But if I just say attempted arm shoulder lock, subject was taken down, I don't include anything about what actually happened, and I'm sued, and I go back 2 years later, I try to update that report or correct it, it's going to cast suspicion on me. Is a bad idea. So do not, or try as much as you can to put as much detail in that report as you possibly can. Um, Administrative purposes for law enforcement reports. Your book lists one as simply promotion, and that's true. When I'm looking to promote a supervisor in our department, if they can't write a good report, then how can I expect them to check reports and grade reports if they're not doing it themselves? So just remember, as you're writing these reports and you're writing sloppy reports, when you go for that promotion, that's going to come back to bite you, because if you can't do it in the field, then I cannot expect that you will not only be able to do it properly, but then be able to correct others. So it also talks about corrections officer reports. Uh, Let me give you the word of warning on that. Listen, I worked in the correctional setting for about a year. Um, there is nothing that a inmate likes to do better than to read your report about them. And they've got 24/7 to sit in their cell and study that report that you wrote about them. So if you're working in a correctional setting and you're writing reports, just remember that they are going to be sitting there thinking about your report, talking about your report, picking your report apart, and trying to disprove your report. So just be ready for that, because that's going to happen. Um, Pre-sentencing reports, very important topic. The reason that pre-sentencing reports are important to us to think about is because pre-sentencing reports really can determine how long an offender is incarcerated. The pre-sentencing report is basically an investigator's report. That probation officer will go back. They may interview neighbors. They may interview family members. They might interview clergy. They might interview coworkers, former girlfriends or boyfriends, because they want to give to the judge. What they're doing is they're painting a picture for the judge about this inmate's life and why they should or shouldn't be released, or how long they should be incarcerated. So pre-sentencing reports are very important. It's very important that they're in depth. Now, your book talks about a thing called the CSI effect, and we are seeing that quite a bit now. People expect that during trials, they expect to see blood splatter. They expect to see DNA. They expect to see fingerprints. They expect you to show up with a footprint, a cast of a mold of a footprint. That is the CSI effect. They expect to see those things, but they don't expect to hear them with the terminology that is accurate for them. They want to hear you say fingerprint. They don't want to hear you talk about the whorls and arches and points within that fingerprint. They just want to hear you say his fingerprint matched. As investigators, sometimes it's not that simple. We have to use technical speak, but in doing so, we need to make sure that we also explain what we're saying, and that can be done in the report also. With that said, when we talk about technical speak or technical speech, there are some important things to remember. There's appropriate technical speech. And that is things like in a forensic examiner's report, in a in a medical report. There's some technical terms that have to be used. There's not a time when we use codes and signals or police jargon. Um, if I say I was in Route 25 for the 23, followed by a 43 before I went 33-35 to the signal 2 in my report, well, officers in my department will know that I just said I was en route to my station for my lunch break before I stopped by my house and then resumed patrol en route to a traffic accident, where I then became en route to a traffic accident. Guys in my department would know that, but your citizens aren't going to know that. So we do not include that type of police jargon in our reports. So the most commonly used report in the industry is the daily log. It is the hated, despised daily log that police officers spit on when they can. The daily log stinks. I hated filling them out as an officer. I hate reviewing them as a chief. It's not fun. The daily log is boring. You log the things you do. You log the places you're at. And it's no fun. Some places still do daily logs by hand. All of our daily logs are done computerized, and they're done right inside the vehicle, the police cruiser. But like I said, they're no fun. Daily logs stink. But they're so important because they protect you as a police officer. They show where you are at any given time. So that if someone comes back and wrongfully accuses you, you can say, man, I wasn't even there. Here's where I was at, and here's what my day looked like. So if you work for an agency that doesn't have a daily log, make yourself fill one out. Do that religiously so that when the question comes and people ask, where was your officer during this time, or when you're falsely accused and they're accusing you of something that was done 2 months ago, you can pull out your daily log and you can show them where you were at during that time. The book talks very clearly about using black black pens. Obviously, we never want to use pencil. Excuse me. Obviously, we never want to use pencil for anything because it can be erased. But then there's the debate between black or blue. Most departments I've worked at really haven't cared. I worked for one chief that required us to use blue at all times. And the reason for that was that blue, he would know, was the original report. When the report was then photocopied, it would show up as black. Now, the book talks about that blue doesn't copy as well. Now, I guess that's true. And that chief's theory is no longer valid because we now have colored printers and colored copiers. So the blue, it was still copied blue, you know. So it's really maybe a departmental preference. To this day, I usually use black. It just kind of looks better in the report, and it's more available to me, black pens. So I guess it's more of a departmental issue. The book is highly recommending using black, but I wouldn't say in this day and age that blue or black really matters that much on printers and things like that, or copy machines, because they're pretty advanced. Just because you write well does not mean that you write reports well. You may be an excellent writer. You may be able to articulate things. You might be able to talk about how the man entered the room and he sweeps the woman off her feet and she looked into his eyes and there was a glimmer of hope because she had lost, whatever. I mean, you might be a beautiful writer. That does not mean that you write reports well. Reports, while they should be clear and flow and easy reading, there are details in those reports that are important for us as police officers to have. So just because people have complimented you on your writing and said that you do a very good job of that, doesn't necessarily mean that you are a good report writer.